All right, y'all, 2 nights in a row. Here I am live. Last night we had John from SOE. I hope everybody was blessed by that. Hope everybody dug it. Today, we're with another guy, and I think you're going to be really digging what he's talking about. Now, folks, if you're just getting in, do us a favor right off the bat. Hit the thumbs up. Let us know what time it is. Want to give a shout out to my man Bowen again at Thunderstick Homestead. Go check him out. He's doing a lot of good stuff over there, pretty impressive stuff, and gave a sterling recommendation of our bone sauce. And by the way, folks, before we get into this, I want to remind you, remember, on the 30th of this month, we got that class. It's going to be out at SOE. Remember, check out all the things we got going in over at freesteading.com, freesteading.com. If you're not signed up over there, look, it's very simple. It's very easy. They're not going to spam you. They're not going to tell everybody your email and all that kind of stuff. They just need to know you're a human being. So if you want to know about all the different festivals going on, here before too long, they're even going to have a little exchange where we can buy and sell our goods over there. Probably not a bad place to be right now. And guess what? They're not going to require a mark on your right hand or your forehead. So make sure you go over there, check it out. There's a lot of cool things going on. All right. Also, if you need anything from us, bone sauce, comfrey, go check out the website, permapasturesfarm.com. Now, tonight, y'all, we're going to talk about, I've gone on over and over and over again about the need for us within this community to support artists. And you're looking at one right now. I've also had on a little while ago, he was on with Testimona. And she's going to be out at the gathering at SOE also, this Self-Reliance Festival. And she's going to actually be performing there, as I understand. But both of them are both recording artists. And Joel, man, his music really stuck out to me, y'all. I reached out to him and asked if he would make some music that was, kind of inspired by some of what we do. And, put his whole little thing on it. And he did. And it's fantastic. But the worst part about it is I lack the technical prowess to be able to play it right now. So that's a problem. When William gets back, William's at jiu-jitsu right now. When he gets back, maybe he can swing in here and make that happen. But anyway, check out VanTesla. Check out the music. Before we get into it, Joel, tell everybody about you, man, what you do.
Yeah, I do a lot, actually. So from you, like you just said, I'm a recording artist. I'm one half of VanTesla. My buddy Quan Duke, he's the other half. And we've been doing music together for about 3 years, but we started the whole VanTesla movement almost 2 years ago. We're actually in the process of working on VanTesla 2, which is the 2-year anniversary of when we started all this. And it's been a crazy journey when we started this idea of counterculture and going against the system. I was always very intrigued with the underbelly of things going on in the world and everything else. And if people, want to know my backstory, I came from a whole arena of really trying to be on the other side of it, not the good side. So if people know that, you can always get to The Devil's in the Music, which is one of the podcasts, the first podcast I ever did with Tony Merkel from the Confessionals, where I explain more into that and, where I came from, that arena of hip hop and where I wanted to take it. But for me, there were things that happened in my life that drove me a different direction, which I'm happy for now. And one of the things that I wanted to do as a musician was to create good music, music that resonates with people, in the mainstream world, but can speak the truth. I think a lot of times stuff that irritates me, and this is just me being picky as an artist, is artists that have good intentions, but don't really that lack the talent to get that message to people in the right way. Because I feel like a lot of the guys that are really talented get eaten up by the industry pretty quick. Industry picks them out and they're like, oh yeah, you're going to work for us and say what we want you to say. And they offer them a lot, money, power, fame, all that stuff. It's attractive. It was to me. But at the end of the day, with Quan and I, we always had this mentality. And when 2020 hit, and everybody knows 2020 hit, it really just gassed us up to push forward with this VanTesla idea, which we'd already been playing around with. So we ended up doing VanTesla, which was the first album. And we ended up getting a lot of great connections from that. A lot of people that connected with us. And as we grew, we kept putting out more music. I've put a lot of solo music as well. So is Quan. I've got a crazy soundtrack coming out for the Skinwalker documentary that I'm a part of with Tony Merkel and Merkel Media, where we went out to Utah hunting down skinwalkers. And that's another thing that I do for people that don't know. I'm also a cryptid hunter. I went hunting Dogman, which we have a Dogman documentary called Expedition Dogman. We saw some really crazy stuff. It was on YouTube. It hit almost 200,000 views, but it's pulled now because it will be hitting actual streaming services here pretty soon. So everything we've got going forward will be Amazon Prime, any of those type of streaming services that people can get to and purchase. It will be up soon, though, I think within the next few weeks. That's what we're looking at anyway, tentatively. I don't want to give a date because we don't know yet because we're talking to distributors and all that. But as far as the Skinwalker documentary, it'll be in the same vein. In October, early November is tentatively what we're looking at. The soundtrack that I've got for that's finished. It will be coming out at the same time, and I've got a music video coming out as well. So one of the guys that's one of the videographers for the documentaries, and he's one of the team that goes on these trips. He also shoots my music videos too. So we both live in Ohio, which is pretty crazy. So, I got a lot going on there. I'm also one half of Kill the Mockingbirds podcast with Sean Chris, who was on here last time with me when we talked. And he and I have really hit the ground running since I joined up with him about 2.5 months ago. A lot of great things have been coming together there. We were just on Tony Merkel's show, The Confessionals, where I broke down some crazy theories and some crazy things that I've been putting together. We're doing a massive podcast blowout with 2 other podcasters on The Confessionals next month, where I get, we're going to go 3-4 hours. Like Tony said, he doesn't care if every fallen angel in the book tries to knock out the feed again, which for anybody that doesn't know, I did 3 different podcasts in 3 different states.
Hold it right there, brother. Hold on. We can't have this feed bumped off just yet.
Okay.
Hold on. We'll get to that, but I want to make sure we cover that later on in the program.
Sure.
Every single, folks, you want to stick around because every single time he talks about a certain topic, and I've listened to the podcast, every single time he does it, the computer blows up or they have some massive, serious technical difficulties that just defy imagination. So, folks, look, I know you're probably wondering right now, why on earth would I be interviewing or talking to a person that does all these crazy things? Well, because I do too. That's something you may not understand about me and a number of other people out there. Yeah, you know me as a permaculture designer. You know me as a farmer. You know me as a butcher. You know me as an electrician. You know me as doing a lot of things. We all wear different hats. But Joel came up with, before we get into that, because I don't want to knock this feed off just yet.
Yeah.
You gotta talk about that. And
we'll touch on it. We'll touch on it in a way that doesn't get you bumped. That way it'll lead people to the podcast and they can really get into it. And we're going to go really in depth next month when we get into it.
Look, the warranty just ran off of this Mac that I'm talking to you on. So if it blows up,
blow it up.
No, I want to make sure we talk about some pretty critical stuff before we get into that.
For sure.
Every single time you talk about it, there's some massive technical difficulties. But yeah, we'll hold on for a minute with that. Before we go too deep into it, folks, I want you to know that there's a lot of people out there. I know other people. In fact, John from SOE, I talked to him last night. He's on right now. And I'm pretty sure that he employs artists.
He's a good dude too. That guy's good, man. Really there to help people out and help them learn and grow.
That's right.
So I appreciate anybody that's doing whatever they can in the counterculture movement to teach people, help people grow. We all play our part, you know what I mean? And I think, he plays a big part in that too. So I just want to give him a shout out.
That's exactly what he did. I mean, I was talking about it last night. I'm not so sure that I did a wonderful job of it. But yeah, within this movement, we all help each other grow. And in fact, the song that you came up with is about that very thing. And, we'll get into, first of all, before you knock the feed off, before we get into the thing you talk about that gets everybody cut off. I want you to talk about, we discussed the notion of you doing a little bit of music that was maybe inspired by farming, growing,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I kind of said, hey man, just run with it, see what you come up with. And at first, I wish we could play it right now because I thought it was pretty inspiring, but I didn't feel that way at first. And when I told you, any song to me that has ever been very moving to me, any song that has ever, I didn't necessarily like it at first because I think my brain subconsciously just didn't know how to process it yet. And
Right.
you got a way of producing music that you got to listen to it, I think, 3 or 4 times. In fact, I know that's exactly the case for me to get the full depth of what I think you're trying to say in it. And that to me is the most impactful kind of art. That's the kind of music, that's the kind of things I love. And so you ran away with this thing, man, and you came up with something, you and your buddy Quan. Why don't you tell people about how that was inspired and what you came up with? And since we can't play the song right now,
Yeah.
in fact, I just heard William come in, I think. I'll
Yeah.
text him here in a minute while you're talking about it. See if we can get him actually up here to get this thing playing. Because
Yeah.
Lord knows, man, everybody knows that if I'm touching this computer, bro, it ain't going to be you blowing it up first. It's going to be me. So why don't you tell everybody about this song you came up with and what it has to do with us?
Yeah. What's going on, William?
Hey, what's up, Joel?
Okay, Joel, Joel, real quick before you explain the inspiration of this thing.
We can just play it over the phone. So if you go to the link.
Okay, well let him
play it over
here. You handle all that
Yeah,
and let
your phone.
Yeah, but I don't know how to operate. So yeah, Joel, go ahead, man. Drive on. What was your inspiration? What did you come up with, homie?
Yeah, so you'd reach out to me to do something that was inspired by what you do. And I think I remember telling you too, because I've done songs for people before and I don't do jingles. Like Quan, I don't do jingles. They have to mean something to us too. And, I wanted to put it out as an actual single. It's going to be on the VanTesla 2 album, which is going to be awesome. And, I really wanted to play into the fact that you're a farmer and what you do and how that would resonate with me, but also from a metaphorical level that people could understand growth. So we came up with this concept, people know what photosynthesis is. I hope people know what it is. So
anymore,
you'd be surprised, right? So we made
a bad thing these days, bro.
I'm telling you, yeah. But that's great. But photosynthesis, that's the name of the song, and it's really upbeat. And I want to do something uplifting because one of the things that I try to do, as much as I bang against the system, and I've got your heavy hitters where I'm just lacing into whoever is in power, and I'll call them out by names. You know how I am. Like I don't hold anything back. I'm pretty blatant. Not everything's for your kids to listen to, but it is good, wholesome music. It's just sometimes you got to let out a few 4-letter words when you're going against these people who think they can, squash us. So, for me though, I try to have a balance though with my music because I want to be able to uplift people and we need to grow. We need to grow together. We need to connect. We need to grow. Something Sean and I talk about on our podcast all the time is as much as we bang against the system, we still wake up with a smile on our face, enjoy life, prepare yourself. But enjoy life. If you're rolling with God, you'll be all right. Like that's how I feel about it. So that means something to me whenever I'm talking about those things. And I want to convey that in my music. And this was one of the songs that I did for you. And I really, really liked what we did. I felt really good when I did it. Quan, he was really excited and we got it out. And, it was funny because we talked the next day and you told me, you were like, hey, first I wasn't really sure. And then as I was listening to it more, I was like, man, this is really good. And that's how, like you said, it's how music is. I'm that way with music sometimes where something doesn't hit me right away and it'll hit me later. One thing I do with music is layers. There's layers on layers with the music that I do with Quan because that's part of us being creative is creating something that's its own little piece of art that people can enjoy. And, I also want it to help people grow too, connect the growing of the farm to the personal growth that we should all have every day.
No, man, I totally dig it, man. And in fact, all your music, I mean, honestly, if anybody's ever for those of you out there, thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. And you're going to want to stick around before Joel gets us kicked off.
I got the song right here. You just click on that.
Oh. Yeah.
I'm trying to pause it. There you go.
Anyhow, we'll get to the song in a minute. But
sorry, y'all.
No, hey son, you might want to stick around because he's about to blow this computer right up off the
Joel,
wall, man.
Joel, don't destroy any of our equipment. We don't have it on speed dial like Tony.
Hey, William, let me tell you something funny. One of the guys that one of the podcasts that I was on, that I was talking about some of that stuff, and it happened with, he wanted me to come up and hang out with him and his wife, me and my girl, go up there and hang out with him. He told me he's putting all of his equipment in the shed out back, so I'm not close to it.
Dude, hold on. Your girl, you mean Jen Psaki? Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. Jen Psaki's his girl, right?
What's that?
Ain't Jen Psaki your girl?
Well, she's my future girl. We're working on that.
Yeah. You gotta listen to his podcast to get the joke there, y'all. Blah! Anyway, hey, if you don't know already, everybody hit that thumbs up. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. It's a little bit different. I know typically you tune in for farm news, permaculture, stuff like that, and even speaking truth to power, but this is how we do it. There's nothing. I've often said that the most revolutionary thing, in fact, I didn't say it, somebody else did. One of the most revolutionary things you can do is deciding what you will and won't put in your mouth, what you eat, growing your own food. Well, it's also a lot of the art that we have out there too. It's not getting that stuff off the shelf, which I've talked to y'all about before. If it's not, I'm not going to be enlisting or hiring any artists that aren't legit. I mean, if I don't feel their stuff, I won't work with them. It's just, everybody forgets the artist in the realm of all this. We think that, hey, we got this farmer over here, we got all this, we got that. Well, I don't watch TV and I barely listen to music. So when I do, it's listening to things like VanTesla. So I got to be honest with you, man. When I went back and I started checking out your music, I hit you up again and I said, hey, bro, you mind if I use some of this in our videos? And folks, if you were wondering, our sequences and stuff that go on in some of our videos, especially with the chicken tractor on steroids, well, it's their music we're using. And if you listen to the words, I was hoping, like Joel was saying a minute ago, there's layers in what we do. There's layers in permaculture. There's 7 layers of a forest, okay? Well, it happens that same way with his music. So if we're presenting to you a way that we're moving these birds and the inventive ways that we come up with, well, it only makes good sense to use inventive music that has layers to it, where you're watching it and you're hearing them talking about they don't want an individual, just a carbon copy. And then he talks about Tamagotchis and all these other things that are all layered right there in it. And it's in an upbeat way to where it's brought in there. Well, it's part of those layers that many of you may not know, but now you do. So before I go ahead and screw this up, man, hopefully, man, William, I can't believe he left this room and let me in here. We'll play part of it, y'all, but we'll stick around because we're going to be doing it in the Permaculture Pimpcast. We're definitely going to put VanTesla. Our next episode is going to have VanTesla on there. We're also going to be, in the future, Joel doesn't know it yet, but we're going to have him on our podcast, the Permaculture Pimpcast. And by the way, PIMP stands for Permaculture is my passion. So let's go ahead and play this thing. I don't even know where the mic is, bro. We'll just play some of it. And folks, stick around. Believe me, it's worth it. Oh, snap. Well.
Just what it felt like to make love again. Got me staring at the sun again. I'm just trying to be a better man. But it got me out here playing like we had the memos. I stay on 10 toes. You see the info. But I know the MO. Who was the so for? We back to normal. We know that for sure. Let's back the four. Glory, go. 100 no fumes, no fly, so swimming, I'm up with no cops, so take to the base with no.
I'm not sure how that's coming out, but I'm giving y'all a taste right now. If you want to hear a better version of it, William's going to mix it in to our, we use primarily, sorry, homie. I didn't know if you made some creepy stuff kick off again, dude. I heard that door move. I didn't know if somebody was walking up in here or not. I know the quality doesn't sound so good right now, y'all, but just stay tuned. We're going to be playing it in a video. But as soon as Joel came out with it, then I'm like, dude, you got to come on with me because this is part of the economy, how many times have y'all heard me come live and beg y'all to come up with businesses, support each other, support everybody you can. This works. Instead of going to the big box store, maybe we buy soap from one of the other homesteaders. Instead of going to the box store and getting that stuff that's in the Walmart section of what they call music, which is really indoctrination. Maybe you might want to check out somebody like VanTesla. Maybe you might want to check out Joel. Instead of turning on that TV, maybe you want to check out Joel's podcast, because honestly, it's entertaining. You may not agree with everything they're talking about, but man, it is entertaining. And Joel, I want to kind of lean into that, unless you got something more you want to say about the music here, bro. I mean,
well, just real quick, people,
and it's inspiring.
Yeah, real quick for everybody that wants to hear the song, it's out on all platforms. So you can go to Apple Music, you can go to Spotify, Tidal, any of the major 25, 30 that are out there, plus YouTube. Just type in photosynthesis, Joel Thomas. It'll come up right away. You'll see Joel Thomas, Quan Duke there. You can play it, put it in your playlist. You know, you could even go to Joel Thomas on Spotify, and there's a playlist made, a VanTesla playlist made, and it's at the top. So you could definitely go check it out.
I got to be honest with you, man. I'm not, until I heard Immortal Technique, I'd given up on hip hop. If it was that junk that they're playing on the radio, which is for me unlistenable, I was like, okay, I give up on this, man. I'm not even, it wasn't until I heard him that I started getting interested in him. Then I hear what you guys are doing, and then I'm hearing these other people that I didn't even know existed that are talking truth to power, no different than what you guys do in your podcast. You guys are dropping tactical nukes of information and about what some people might say, oh, it's a little too esoteric for me. Well, to me, that realm is every bit as the one we're in right now. And maybe we can kind of lean into that. But folks, check out VanTesla Music. Go ahead and check out all the platforms he talked about. But now we're going to get into some of this. I don't know, man. Let me make sure. Hang on, bro. Let me unplug this thing from the wall, man. Make sure you ain't blowing this thing right up. I don't need my house going on fire, bro. I know we're not going to get into it right away, but folks, for the ones that are just getting in here, Joel, why don't you tell them, because there's a lot of folks that drop off, some that came back on. Real quickly, why don't you tell them a little bit about, it kind of helps if they know a little bit of your background, if you're okay talking about it.
Yeah, you know, absolutely.
Maybe this
I don't hide anything, because they'll figure it out anyway. I've always learned that about social media.
Well, I want you to start with that. Why don't, if you're okay with it, give them a little bit about your background and what brought you down the dark road and what brought you to the light, and then we'll blow up my computer there afterwards.
Yeah, so, you know, for me, I grew up in a church, and my dad's a preacher. He's still a preacher to this day. Great man. When I got to a certain point, I wanted to do hip hop. My parents did not like that idea at all. They actually kicked me out of the house for it. So, you know, I was on my own, and, you know, I was young, and, you know, to me, that was fighting the system then. You know, I always had that built in me regardless. And, you know, I was doing music, and it just, you know, I was having, you know, these moments where I would get close, like, you know, labels talking to me, different things, and I just couldn't crack that ceiling. And, you know, this was during the heyday of like Jay-Z and all the Illuminati stuff and everything else. So, you know, I went down a lot of rabbit holes for 2 or 3 years, just like studying stuff, learning about Freemasonry, just a lot of different things that people take for granted when it comes to these people they idolize that make it to a certain level. Actors, actresses, you know, I'm not saying they're all involved, but to some degree, you don't get to a certain point. You don't crack that ceiling and get to that ultimate level unless you're selling something out. It just doesn't happen. And I wanted that. I wanted to go down that road. I ended up becoming a Freemason, and I got involved with some things that, you know, I won't go into all of that, but there was a point in time where some crazy stuff happened in my life, with my son, with my family, jobs. I came to a crossroads, and it was, I believe, in retrospect, looking at it, and I've had some time to look at it, I think I could have had everything I wanted, but I've lost everything else. So I think that was that point where I wasn't okay with that. I think you say you're okay with it until you kind of get to that point. Now, in doing a lot of that and getting into Freemasonry and everything else, I got really deep into the esoteric stuff. I got deep into trying to connect with entities, all that. It all exists. It's all there. I don't care what anybody says. What really blows my mind, and I'm a Christian, what blows my mind, Billy, is Christians that can't wrap their mind around entities. They can't wrap their mind around the paranormal, or as I like to say, the supernatural. Listen, you believe in a supernatural being that created you. How can you not open your mind up to everything else? I think it's tough for people because they're raised a certain way in the church. And I'm going to tell you right now, the church was infiltrated a long time ago. It was created to keep us severed from that connection, that supernatural connection that we're supposed to have with God all along. People wonder why they don't see people healing each other all the time and all these things. Well, that was part of like Satan's plan. He infiltrated the church. He got in there. He played both ends of it. He got into the church. He made it so rigid and so legalistic and took away the supernatural aspect of God. And on the opposite end, he made it super attractive for people that wanted to go the other route, wanted to get into the New Age, wanted to get into Luciferianism, all these things, because it's like, hey, you can get to all this power and all these cool, powers and esoteric knowledge if you go this way. So it's almost like he played it against itself, which he still does. And for me, it wasn't just money and power. And I try to explain that to people when I was going down the road of being a Freemason and trying to become famous and rap. That was a part of it. But a lot of it, man, was just the knowledges, the hidden knowledges, knowing that you know stuff that other people don't know. That's attractive, man. It still is to me today. But I found that, and I was telling my daughter this a few days ago, as a matter of fact, and because she's built like me, she loves to think and critically think and learn. And I told her, I was like, listen, just because you're on God's team doesn't mean that you don't have access to knowledge that he wants to give us. We've just severed ourselves off from it. We've chosen to walk down this path and act like that all this stuff's not happening in the world. We just act like that these elites aren't involved in all of these practices. They have been since the dawn of time, since Cain. Cain's bloodline started it all. That's where it all started, was Cain and his son Enoch, and it all went all the way through Lamech, and that's where really the first secret society, the Brotherhood of the Snake, started, was through them, and then Freemasonry and all these other ones begat from that. I think it's tough for people. Yeah. Let
me jump in for a second here. You said something I thought was very. I want to get back on track on your journey here, but I want to hit on something I think is pretty critical. Something I've been very critical about, and something I was really part of the problem, I guess, in the big run. And that is, why do you think so many? And I hate the term, but I don't know what else to say. But why do you think so many evangelicals dismiss the supernatural? Because you believe, okay, Jesus died and rose again. That's pretty supernatural. You believe in him raising the dead. You believe water in the wine. You believe somebody 3 days in Jonah in
burning bush.
Burning bush. But somehow I can't get these same evangelicals to take a second look of the things I have personally witnessed in my life that were beyond that. I won't even. You know what? I'll have to be a guest on your show one of these days to really go into it, because my show really isn't my platform here isn't necessarily the place for that.
Well, we've already got you booked. It's coming up in a month, so you can let loose there.
Maybe, because I've seen some freaky stuff.
Yeah.
That cannot be explained any other way. But for some reason, you even try to mention this to most mainstream evangelicals. They look at you as if you're the crazy one.
Absolutely.
So, I think you kind of addressed that. I mean, maybe that's the enemy's plan.
It is.
Make us think, because we wrestle not against flesh and blood. And I don't know why everybody dismisses that part. But you had it on this journey. You went down this dark side.
Mm-hmm.
I got to know, man, what brought you to the light? I mean, the days of darkness have a way of bringing a man to the light. I wonder how you did.
that crossroads where I was like, I can either continue down this path I'm going and get everything that I want to achieve, or I'll lose my kids, I'll lose family. I'll be down a path of no return. I'm not saying there's ever no return. With God, there never is. But I just meant that I would have went down a deep, dark path. I could feel it. I knew it. I saw the road open up before me on both sides, and I knew. I'm not saying at that moment that I had this epiphany and turned to Christ. I don't think that's how it always works. I just chose not to go down the one path. I still was very open to, not great things at the time, but I think I just was not willing to go down that one path. And I think God kind of stepped in and put me through, I'd say he did, but I put myself through some hell that drove me to want to achieve things for myself. And in doing that, it ended up bringing me closer to God, because I looked at my kids. I was like, what do I want to leave back for them as a legacy? What do I want to be when I'm gone from this earth, when they look at, what their dad left here? I felt like that was just way too important for me. And really 2020 was just the absolute, kicking the nuts for me, because that was when I just snapped, literally in some ways, because I just got so, fed up with the system, and there was nothing good out of it. And when I met Tony, because I actually went to Philly and was in studio with him, when I did Devils in the Music, when I talked about all this stuff, he had to talk to me afterwards. He's like, listen, I think there's a road that's laid out for you by God. And I think that just really resonated with me, in that moment. And then when I was able to digest a lot of it, not that I wasn't already on that path, because I knew that I was. I just really leaned into it and really, just continued to grow, with God and look for what he wanted. But I also realized a lot of things that Christians don't understand about God is it's not this rigid, just, sitting in a pew and sitting there like this with your book and, singing a hymn. Like it's God's so much more than that. And having that connection with him, people think they have to do so much to get to God. And I think that was the devil's plan too, when he infiltrated the church, to make all of these steps to get to God. Well, you got to pray this way. You gotta pray to this priest. You need to do this. You got these Hail Marys you got to do. That's just on the Catholic side, but just even in the Protestant side, you got all of these legalistic things that people think that they have to do to get to God. If you know that God's inside of you, you can talk to him anytime you want to, just like you and me are talking. I will walk around, outside sometimes when I'm talking to God. It's not you don't have to bow your head. All these things that they've created. If that makes you feel closer to God, feel free. But don't feel like you have to do those things, because that's not what it was ever intended to be. We talk about Elijah in the Bible. He walked so closely to God, or Enoch did, so closely to God, he literally walked into heaven. Elijah got lifted to heaven by a chariot of fire. But we're talking about Enoch was so close to God. He just, in my terms, the way that I would break it down, a lot of people think, he went up and everybody thinks heaven's up. I just think he literally slipped through into another dimension. He literally just slipped through. He was walking with God. God was there with him. They just kind of just walked into this other area where he just wasn't here on this earth anymore. And, this is that's the piece that's missing, is the excitement of God. We don't have that anymore. We haven't had it in a long, long time. And it's sad. It's sad, really, Billy, because we've taken that supernatural, really awesome, cool aspect of God out. It's out. And we sit there and we trudge around all day. Well, I'm going to have faith in God. You know what I mean? That. Replace the word faith with trust. And that's when you can really get to what God's there for us for. It's a trust, because things can be bad, but you can trust that God's got your back. It doesn't mean things are going to get better right away. You don't know, but you got to trust that the path that you're on is the path that you're supposed to be on if you're walking with him. And there's not a set standard for that either, Billy. And we're also fallible. messed up human beings, and we're going to mess up every day. We mess up, but don't think that that's somehow getting you further away from him. Oh man, I messed up today. People get so freaked out about it. Just talk to him, man. Like, there's no set remedy for everybody. Everybody's got their own connection with God, and that's your personal connection. He's built that with you. He's willing to build more of that with you.
I couldn't agree with you more, man.
But that's that supernatural thing you were asking about, Billy, is like, there's a verse in the Bible in Psalm 82:1. In the Hebrew, it says Elohim, which is one of the Hebrew words for divinity. Elohim judge the Elohim. Now, in the King James Version, it doesn't say that because they've changed that. But in that verse, it says Elohim judge the Elohim. It literally means God judge the other gods. Whoa, that's going to blow Christians out of the water because there's other gods. Now, God's not saying worship these other gods, but you got to understand that God has a massive, like unknown world that we don't know about. We don't know about all these other things going on in these other dimensions, these other places. We have no idea what God's created, because culturally throughout history, there's been talks through all kinds of cultures about what they call the divine council, which is a group of gods that are kind of like a council. So that verse, when it's broken down as God judged the Elohim, apparently these Elohim, these other gods, weren't doing their job. So God was like, all right, hold on a second. Let me step in, and I'm going to do my God thing, my Yahweh thing to you real quick, because this ain't happening. And who's to say that these other gods, didn't get an idea of their own? Because I feel like that when God creates something, he gives everybody free will. Clearly, we see that with Lucifer in the Bible and what he decided to do when he pushed back against God and left with 1/3 of the angels. He gives everybody free will. He gives everything he creates free will. So why, if he created like a divine council, what if those other gods are running around? I want to be worshiped too. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know, but there's several verses in the Bible that explicitly say, don't worship any other gods. So when you look at that, like, okay, is he speaking about some of these other Elohim that are created? There's so many nuances there in the Bible and so many translations that when you start digging into it, you start realizing that, man, this supernatural, crazy world that we think's fiction is not. And for that matter, a lot of this fictional movies and shows that you've seen are based on people that know these facts. So when you're looking at some of this stuff on a show or the big screen or whatever, it just created out of nothing. They're pulling it out of stuff that they know, like these people that are obviously on the other side of it, but they know like what's going on in this supernatural world. That's why Luciferian doctrine, that's why that deep New Age or that connection to that those divinities is so attractive, because Christianity has literally just that out. They don't want anybody thinking that there's any connection to God on any supernatural level. There's no such thing as spirits. I've heard Christians say there's no such thing as demons. Like, what is going on right now? Like, it's literally like Jesus casting out demons left and right in the Bible, and they'll literally say that. It's mind-blowing to me. Like, it's just, I'm blown away by the church, and the church disgusts me as a whole. I'll be honest with you. And I know there's some awesome, people that are close to God that I know personally. And my dad, one of the few people that I give a lot of props to that still preaches out of the pulpit, I think does a fantastic job. And he'll be one of the first people to tell you, because oddly enough, before he became saved, and he did a show with Tony too, where, he got super deep into Satanism. He almost became a Satanist before he became a Christian. So he's seen a lot of wild stuff too. He'll sit there and tell you, hey, like, listen, these entities exist. These things exist. This paranormal world exists. I think there's also entities, Billy, that aren't necessarily good or bad. So think about it. If there's this other, like, dimension, right? And there's these, other things there. Wouldn't there be things like, I don't know, animals there too, or whatever else? I think that's something like your Mothman. I think Mothman is literally like, maybe it's been in jokes and circles that they're like the trash panda of whatever universe that is. Because when they get over here, they're super scared. They're not trying to hurt anybody. They're always looking for some sort of food or something. And I just feel like they're just like abnormally large for somebody like us to see. I don't think they're necessarily demonic. I don't think everything's demonic either. Now, could it hurt you? Hey, a tiger can hurt you. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad, but it can hurt you because, it's a tiger. They've got a certain genetic predisposition to eat, flesh. So it could be like the way with a lot of those things too. So you got to understand there's such a massive, wild world that we don't understand. We don't understand God. Hell, Billy, people can't even tell us like exactly what the Bible says. So like, how do we even grasp like just a minute portion of what God is? We just hope to obtain that while we're here. We don't know. So I love when people get in their little soapboxes and start going like, no, the Bible says, I was told. Like, no, you don't know. You really don't, because you have to open your mind to expand it, because God, when he like, I'm getting on my soapbox now, but with God, I think he intended for us to be as close to him as possible. That was always what he intended. And I think we did everything we could to screw that up.
I totally agree. I want to echo what you're saying there. You hit on so many different things that honestly, it would take an hour for me to unpack just based on what I know. You were talking about the divine council. And Dr. Michael Heiser has written extensively about it.
I've got 3 of his books.
Yeah, even has a really good podcast. And even most of the evangelical world will dismiss what he's saying there and what he's exposed there. A lot of it, some of which you seem to echo. But then also, the thing that drives me nuts are the people that choose to see it metaphorically, and then in other parts, oh, this is literal. Right. And for example, take Genesis 6, for example. Sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair. And I remember hitting up one of my evangelical friends in Kansas City. Good guy. Don't get me wrong. Really good guy. But so I'm telling him what I had just discovered about. I'm like, good night. This changes everything with my understanding of, or at least what I was learning at that time, of Genesis 6. My understanding of what happened in the Levant and all the other things, why Saul and the rest of them were told to go in there and wipe everybody out. All that I just thought they were evil people up until the point that I was introduced to a word called Nephilim. And there's a number of other ways of going about it. Now, folks, this is where it's going to get a little bit creepy. Joel has a different theory on some of this stuff. And every time he gets to talking about it, things get a little bit weird. So if we get bumped off of here, I'm promising you, look, I got half of mine to just show my hands right here. So every single time he's talked about this, and we'll let you get in there for a second there, Joel, but what it talks about basically is in Genesis 6 that there was this, well, depending on how you look at the book of Enoch, that basically these watchers, angels came down, they got it on with earth women, had these giants, and things got stupid. And if you look at the work of people like L.A. Marzulli, Steve Quayle, and a number of others out there, there is archaeological evidence out there. Even the conquistadors, when they came over, they had scribes with them that were monks. And they were talking about these skeletons they were finding. Cortez and all the others, they were finding these skeletons. All of a sudden, the Vatican would just swoop in, take all the bones, nobody ever sees them again. Well, nowadays, or at least for the last 100+ years, Smithsonian rolls in there and they do the very same thing. So me and Joel have never talked about this. I'm not even sure of his position on this. But it's funny that the same Christians, the evangelicals, will take without question the works of Philo, Josephus, and everybody else, but will immediately out of hand dismiss the book of Enoch, even though it was quoted by Jude. I mean, it blows my mind, and I'm glad that you're able to speak to this stuff, but I'm just going to kind of put it in your hands, and I'm going to stand back here and make sure nothing catches on fire, homie.
Well, I tend to fire people up with the book of Enoch because I don't think Enoch wrote the book of Enoch. So
I know that's right. That's your position. I totally understand.
Yeah, I think it was son of Cain that Enoch wrote the book of Enoch. And there's a lot of theologians, or I would say at least very learned people that I've listened to and read that hold that position. I will say this, though. I'm open to the idea that maybe a couple of the books were written by the Enoch we know, and then it got infiltrated with some other books. Because there's some disparities. There's one major disparity in that book that differs from the Bible. The major disparity is that in the Bible, it says that God told Noah how to build the ark. But in the book of Enoch, it said that the angels built the ark. That just sounds like a very fallen angel thing to do, to slide that in, like, we did it. You know what I mean? Like, just to kind of take credit for something that they didn't actually do. So if you know anything about Enoch, son of Cain, he kind of created writing. He created, his dad was a big builder. Cain was a huge builder. That's what Masonry is built on. So Freemasonry, just so people know, was built on building. You know, all the tenets that you learn when you're a Freemason is all about building. It's all about, you know, degrees in building. It's what it is. And it all started with Cain, because Cain built 66 cities. I find that number fascinating too, that it was 66. But this first city that he built was named after Enoch, his first son. And Enoch kind of took the mantle from his dad. You know, he kind of ran with it. He was even worse than his dad in that antediluvian world, or for people that don't understand, it's pre-flood. That's what antediluvian means. So Enoch kind of ran with it, but he also learned, along with, they call them in the book of Enoch, the Watchers. The Watchers helped teach him tools. They taught them a lot, but they helped teach him writing and symbols. Secret societies are always built on symbols. So everything from Brotherhood of the Snake, which started with Cain and Enoch, and like I said, it went all the way down through Lamech and his sons, which is like Tubal-Cain and Jabal and Jubal. I mean, if anybody knows anything about Freemasonry, Tubal-Cain's a huge character in Freemasonry. He's a big part of that. He was the ultimate builder. He was like, that's why he took Cain as part of his name. It wasn't originally that. He literally took Cain and added it on there because it was like, why do it even better than Cain did it? So these guys were builders. But there was the seventh generation of Cain, where you're talking about Genesis 6 happened. This is when the fallen angels came and copulated with the women, and they found them attractive. They wanted to corrupt what God's creation was. This is what their agenda has been all along, is just to corrupt. They're angry at God. Ultimately, they're angry at God for creating humans, because that was it. Everybody thinks Satan was mad at God in heaven because he thought he could do things better than God. Part of it really started with them being mad that God just was going to create us, that he created us, because they got jealous. They're like, why did you create these people who you say you love? You should love us. We're for lack of a better term, if we were to meet an angel, which several people, have throughout history and, do now, they're considered extraterrestrial. They're what we would consider extraterrestrial. We don't, our minds can't comprehend what they are. They're just a different level of being. They're a higher level of being than we are. So there was 1/3 of them that got, what are you doing? You create these meat sacks that can't do anything we can do. And, that pissed Lucifer off. So, they got kicked out and left. And, his whole agenda at that point was to corrupt what God created. He's done a pretty good job of it. I mean, over the centuries. But back then, antediluvian, that's when it went real haywire. We're moving there. We're moving there now. We're getting to that point. But it was definitely got real crazy. Around that 7th generation was when they copied. So then the Nephilim came. These were the giants. In the Bible, they call them the men of renown. These were the superheroes back then. They had almost superhero type abilities because their fathers were angelic. And they originally, the first generation of them could live forever because they basically took on the abilities from their fathers. That's why if you notice in the Bible, it says that God stopped life at 120 years. There was a point where he did that because he wanted to stop these Nephilim from living forever. And this goes into when the Nephilim died, and people, and like myself, I believe that the spirits of the Nephilim roam the earth. They're what we call demons. Demons and fallen angels are two different things. Demons are work for the fallen angels. It's just two different categories, but they are the spirits of the Nephilim that their bodies died out, but they didn't. Their spirit still roams to harass us and attack us. And they're always looking for some sort of host or something to control because, they're angry. I mean, they're all angry. So, and I believe as it got closer to that 10th generation of Seth, because Seth's bloodline was the bloodline that Noah came from. That was Adam's third son. We all know about Abel. Abel died. And then Cain got pissed off and he went out and he did his own thing. And he created this line. And during his line, that's when the Nephilim came. Well, the Nephilim started really going haywire over the next 3 generations. By the 10th generation, they'd already bled into Seth's bloodline. They were already in there. So God came to Noah. And if there's a verse in the Bible where God basically says to Noah that he's perfect in his eyes. He didn't mean that his soul was perfect. A lot of evangelicals get that twisted up too.
Yeah, perfect in his generations.
He meant his DNA was perfect. Like his DNA, because Jesus had to come from a perfect line. He couldn't have a diluted line, not a fallen angel line to come from it. So basically God was like, hey, we got to reboot this thing, man. This is getting crazy. And I believe before the flood, that technology was far greater than it is now. I think that's where you get all of your lore about Atlantis and all of these other things from. If you talk about like fairies, the fairy generations, and you talk about centaurs and all these things we've talked about and all these other, they all existed. All these things existed pre-flood. And to your point, people are like, well, why haven't we seen these things? Well, it's just like you said. They've done a great job of anytime any of these bones, any of this technology or anything else has been found, they've been quick to get it and hide it and move it out of there. If you know anything about Antarctica, we can't go there. And there's been plenty of pictures seen of pyramids down there. Lots of activity that goes on down there. There's only a little block that we're allowed to go to as people that don't work for certain governments or certain entities. That are allowed to do that. So again, pre-flood, I thought technology was just far greater. And I think a lot of that transhumanism went on then too. I think that's where we're moving towards now with this technology boom, us getting connected. Let's connect our minds. I was looking at a commercial the other day. There's a ring that you can wear and it will tell you where your heart rate's at, what you need to implement in your system, all these things. They're just moving it towards like some sort of device that goes in you. Or Gary Wayne, which I love, he wrote the Genesis 6 conspiracy. Great guy. He's been on a lot of podcasts and stuff. But he talks about, a lot of people think that, stuff going on being implemented in you now is the mark of the beast. No, it's not. That's coming down the road. I think it's going to be some sort of something you take that'll change your DNA. I think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to make you more godlike. They're down at CERN right now, quote unquote. They found the God particle, but they're looking for something else. And I think they're looking for that next level, that piece that's going to take you to that Nephilim thing. And I think ultimately that's what these secret societies have always protected is the Nephilim bloodline. When you talk about these great bloodlines, these houses that have been around for generations, these names that we won't speak about on here, but these names that have been around forever, that have these families that are, they don't have social security numbers, they're in a whole different realm than us. The world's their playground. There's no countries to them. These people, when you talk about like the 13 bloodlines, a lot of people talk about those. They talk about reptilians and all that. And maybe, I guess, if you consider reptilians being, fallen angels, which I think they have manifested as that too, then yeah, that could be the case. But I think it literally is the blood of the Nephilim. I think that they think they are better than us, not because they have more money than us, not because they have more power than us. It's because that they have the blood of the gods in them. And that's why they're better than us. And I think that is when you start realizing these facts of what's going on with these people that try to control us and try to tell us what to do, then you realize what their motivation is. When you understand what their motivation is, then you can combat it better. But if you don't understand their motivation and you think it's just tertiary, like it's just money and power or whatever, that's a small piece of it, but that's not it. Their whole identity is built on they are the gods. Their bloodline is of the gods. How could you even look at me right now? You're nothing to me. You are a mere mortal to what I am. I am, and they show that a lot in movies and shows. You look at stuff like Game of Thrones, where there's a lot of incest and stuff like that. They're playing into that fact. That's what they do in these houses, in these families. It's right there for you to see. They're showing us every day. They literally show us every day in media what they're doing. We just choose not to see it. We don't want to believe it. It's easier to wake up, go about our day, believe in God, but don't believe he's that strong. He's not that supernatural. He's just a God that created us, and created the whole universe, but he's not that supernatural. And to even think that God would be like, okay, I'm just gonna create this earth and these people and these animals, but that's it. It's just, I can't wrap my mind around people that think that way. How can you think? My biggest thing is, if you think so small, just don't even believe in God anymore. I don't think you do. I don't think you believe in a real God, because a real God is something that we'll never understand. We just try to get as close to him as we can, because we know that he cares about us. That's it at the base level.
I think you hit on something that's very profound. Anybody tuning in right now, you're going to have to go back to the beginning on this one, Jack, because you're probably thinking, man, whoa, what? Hey, anyway, hit the thumbs up if you just got in. Trust me, when you back it up and listen to what Joel's saying here, it's thought-provoking in so many different ways. And we've never had this conversation before, but I love hearing his twist on it. Do I agree with every part of it? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure he wouldn't agree with everything I'm saying here. But I got to say, this idea is less important for what he's saying than for what it makes you think. And that's exactly what he's promoting here, is that instead of just believing this dogma that some guy who went through some seminary or whatever is sitting here spitting out because 5 generations before him or her, they were told that. Well, like me, Joel seems willing to at least examine this stuff and find out for himself. And it's not going to make you a very popular person in this world for the most part. And frankly, I'm shocked that we still got so many people hanging on right now. I mean, because I thought for sure when me and John were talking about some pretty, we were getting into some esoteric things last night. And tonight I was thinking, before we did this show, we had a brief conversation. And I wanted him to go as deeply into this as he felt comfortable doing. And he's doing that. And he's dropping some manhole covers on the heads. But you know what, Joel? You're pointing out something. I want to hit on this real quick. Mm-hmm. Most people can't seem to reconcile how the powers that shouldn't be could so easily want to put them, their children, their parents, their aunts, uncles, cousins, you name it, all in the grave, and can do it with such Thanos nature, man, where they can sit here and smoke these people with, whether it's this thing or whether it's any other thing, how they can just go out there, push a button, murder all these people and not give it a second thought. And I think you just encapsulated it better in a way that I don't think I've heard anybody else. It's because they don't even see you as human. That's it right there. So going back to your experience, when you're here in this crossroads in the music industry, because I've talked to a Hollywood director not long ago, and that director told me that basically, man, I don't know how far I should go on this. Are you going to be at the self-reliance thing, bro? Are you going to be there? Because she's going to be there. This director.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm looking at it, and we'll have to see. I'll leave it as a big what if. Of course, I'll let you know if I can. I've just got a lot piling up right now, but yeah, I'll definitely see.
I know you do, but I'd love to be able to put you in a room with her, because she was actually in a position to where I'm just going to let her tell you. But I'll put it this way: that Faustian bargain was laid down in front of her. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like, and the lines that I think these people have to cross at the higher levels, I think as they go up the chain, it's more and more diabolical.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I could be wrong here. I know these are things that you study in much greater detail than I do. But in your own journey, do you feel like because you didn't really go into it. Did you feel like that was the crossroads in front of you right there? Like, how far do I have to go? Am I going to have to? I don't even want to think of what I think they do. But did you think you were going to have to cross some serious lines?
Yeah, no, for sure. I really thought I did. I think the one thing I wasn't willing to sacrifice is my kids. And I think what they do is they also pick things that you don't want to do. And they kind of put that out there. That was, again, I'm not saying that was offered to me. I'm just saying that in my gut, I kind of felt that there would be a moment. But I had some conversations with some entities over some things, and I won't talk about it here. I just encourage people to go to the confessionals. It's on the members only. I did like an extra hour and a half where I really went in deep about the talks I had with entities over certain things. One thing, oddly enough, I've never been scared of them. I actually challenged them.
Hold up. You said entities. We're not talking like human beings.
No.
We're talking like entities.
Yeah, I had some conversations with some. I was never scared of them. It's just I've never had that nature. I think that's why I'm willing to go out in the woods and sit around at night and hunting dogman with the team. I've always been Tony always jokes if the portal opens up, he knows he's jumping in first. He's like, I just want to attach a rope to you just in case we can pull you back out. So
I don't see, bro. That's why you don't have any, man. This is why this stuff doesn't go down in the hood. Because I'm telling you what, Dogman's story would have been 5 minutes long, bro. The second he rolls up in the hood, ain't nobody sticking around for that, bro. We'll be booking down the road. It ain't ever going to happen. Let ET show up. Yeah, there'll be a pot of greens or something, but I'm telling you what, that ain't happening. But yeah, you said you had this conversation with entities, and they're basically laying out a Faustian bargain.
Not so much that, but we just had some back and forth. I think we're at that teasing stage. We were always at a kind of teasing stage. I think because there was a part of me that wasn't willing to come up off of whatever it was they wanted. It wasn't presented to me that way in a just outright way. Like some people get it presented to them in an outright way. Mine was more of they really wanted to see if I was for real. Sometimes it's that too. They want to test you. I think becoming a Freemason was kind of the first step.
Regarding that, have you had to disavow? Now you made that, you crossed that line into being a Freemason.
I just stepped away.
How do you reconcile that? You say you're a Christian now. How do you reconcile that?
I mean, I don't think there's any way. I don't know. I guess I don't really understand that part of it. I think if I'm just not part of it and I walk away, then that's me saying I'm not part of it. Tony and I talk about that. We've had several conversations about this. I guess technically I'd be considered one just because, I went through all the things to become one. But I know plenty of people that walked away that were just, that's not for me anymore. Or they had a certain run-in with certain, you know what, I didn't think it was going to be like this or whatever. For me, it was just, I don't want to associate myself with that. And not that, I just want to say, to put this out there, great guys that I was a part of it with, good people. At the end of the day, I want to say this about it. 95% of the people in there, they're not in it for that stuff. They're just in it for brotherhood, helping the community out. We had a lodge that was smack dab in the middle of the projects. It was there for a reason. It was there to help people. And we did a lot to help people. That's what a lot of guys get into it for. It's a fraternity, it's brotherhood. They're not in it to get to this next level of whatever that I was. Now, do guys in there that are a part of that side of it spot you out if you're trying to? I think so. I think there were guys that had their eyes on me. But again, there were some major things that happened in my life at a crucial time that pushed me away from the lodge, pushed me away from going down that path. And I chose not to anymore. So I look back on it as that was probably God that stepped in. I wouldn't even say probably, it was. It kind of shook me up, you know, even though I wasn't walking, quote unquote, people would say walking with him. I think he kind of shook me up and put me on a different path, because one thing that's always been important to me is family and my kids. And I couldn't look at myself in the mirror like, well, I got all this, you know, fame, fortune, whatever, but I lost them. You know, my parents raised me better than that. I just couldn't. I don't know if I could ever reconcile with myself, you know? So that part of it was what I needed to do for me. So as far as that goes, no, I haven't been a part of anything in years. So long time. So it's not something I want to go back down. It's not anything I want to, you know, peep anymore. It's just not for me.
Okay, well, that's how you reconcile it, I guess, is just saying, hey, I'm not part of it. So that's
Right.
cool. Okay, so we were going down that road where you're about to blow this computer up. I don't know how far you want to go with that, or did we make it? Are we the first ones to make it through? Because honestly, I didn't even hear the rest of when you were on the Confessionals podcast. I didn't even hear the rest of it, man. For some reason, I don't know if my earbuds weren't working right or the quality was messed up.
We didn't touch on everything here for sure. Not the big stuff. I think we'll leave that. I think if people want to hear it, I'd go to the podcast. I encourage people to. I get way more in depth. You know, there's 3 separate podcasts that I'm on and I talk about it. I'm on Uncomfortable Podcast with Eric, where it's called Portal Babies. That's the one where we had 10 different interruptions with the equipment. I did another podcast with Cryptids of the Corn. You could check them out. Just look for my name. And it's called Truthbringer. And I'm actually, most of the episode, I'm talking about the Dogman trip. And just at the end, we just started talking about some of this stuff. And I don't know why it spawned off on it. And their whole equipment shut down and their backup power source shut down, which has never happened. They even called Roadcaster Company to ask them, is this possible for something like this to happen? They said, it's not even possible. It shouldn't happen. They can't even the company can't figure out what happened. So they're able to boot back up. We got to talking some more. And I'm joking with Tony about it because he wants Sean and I to come there and be on the show. And we'd been talking about it anyway. And he was going to be on our show. So we were like, yeah, we'll come down to Tennessee. And Tony, you know, Tony believes in all this stuff by far and way out there like me. But he's also going to be logical about things. And he's like, look, man, he's like, it's probably because you're over the internet. It's whatever. He's like, you're going to be in studio with me. We're hard lined. So if something happens then I'll say there's something going on. So we get to the studio. We bang out an hour and a half. He gets up and looks at the Roadcaster. It says error, and it stopped recording at 45 minutes. So right when I was in the middle talking about all this crazy stuff, it stopped and it said error. When he looked into it, it said that it was full. The SD card was full. It had 30 hours on it. There's no way it would be full. It's impossible. It was cleared. It had nothing else on it when we went to record. So he ended up calling. It ended up the whole entire Roadcaster was broke. And he had to buy a new Roadcaster because of what happened. So he told me if I come this time, then I got to pay for it. Yeah, no, it was really wild. And even he said after that, it was really funny too. He's sitting there pissed off, looking at it, mad. I'm jumping up and down. I'm like, see, I told you. I was like, man, you challenged him. You said, that's what I told him. So he started laughing. He said there's definitely something to it. And he wants to get way more in depth. He said, if we have to restart it 50 times, we will. We're going to get it out. And we're going to sit down with Eric from Uncomfortable and Justin from Cryptids of the Corn. We're all going to sit down, all 4 of us. And I'm going to start from the beginning. I've even got some more layers to it since the last podcast I did that I've been doing some research on. And I'm just piecing everything together because I feel like at this point I'm somehow getting, I think if I talk about the pieces separately, it's not a big deal. But when I'm putting them together, like tying the strings up on the board, I think that's when stuff goes haywire. And Justin is a super smart guy from Crypts of the Corn. He has got some ideas of what he thinks is going on. He's going to talk about that podcast, what he thinks is attacking us because of this information getting out. Because I don't think anyone's ever talked about it in the way that I've talked about it, or at least mapped it out the way I have and tied certain pieces together. So again, it's a theory that's growing, and I'm not saying it's fact, but I feel like I'm getting closer to the truth if there's something out there getting mad and trying to shut me down from talking about it.
And this is all in regards to your opinion of the Nephilim, right? And
Correct.
how it's coming back. I mean, this is all regarding, because honestly, I caught enough of it to realize, good night, man. You said some very thought-provoking things in that interview, and I encourage everybody to go check it out. So you're thinking the powers that shouldn't be, or something out there, does not want you talking about your theory on how these things are unfolding in the end times. Is that correct?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And the fact that I've had 3 separate situations, 3 different states, 3 different sets of equipment in 3 different ways break down while I'm talking about this stuff, I do feel like there's some validity to it. I at least feel like I'm getting closer to the truth. I think God wants us to. I think that, he has this plan for us, and that's what I find so fascinating with God now, the side that I didn't know existed before. It excites me because now it's like, oh man, there's this crazy universe that God wants us to discover. He always wanted us to know about it. Matter of fact, back in the Bible, all the crazy stuff that went down, we did know about it. We saw it firsthand. God walked with people.
I think it's still out there, but I think it goes back to it goes right back to your central point of, you know what? You would have a whole lot more kids interested in Sunday school if they were to learn about Genesis 6, if they knew that there's a history and there is a historicity to all this that is far more interesting than a lot of the bland, that this is more. It's like every depiction I've ever seen of Hollywood of David and Goliath and Goliath. Every single depiction of it is not exactly the way my mind's eye sees it when I read how David and Goliath went down. And if they would just stick to the original intent, I think that I don't know that you could get any better. I see a confident young boy walking up in there saying, hey, this day the Lord's going to deliver you in my hands, and this is how it's going down, Jack. And then, him basically taking his sword and chopping off his head, which I'm sure there's a reason why he did that too. I'd love to talk to you more, man. Dude, there is so much more I'd love to talk to you regarding all this stuff. But if you can make it on down, I'll put it this way, bro. If you can make it on down to the Self-Reliance Festival, because there's a number of people that want to meet you. John is one of them. There's a number of people that want to meet you down there, and I was kind of hoping you would perform even maybe next time if they're, provided we still have a planet. But if you can get down there, bro, there's more I want to talk about, and maybe even get you on camera regarding some other things that I don't necessarily want to cover right here.
Right.
Because, well, frankly, I think I'm not going to say we crossed any lines or anything, but anybody people are clearly digging it. They're watching right now, and you're dropping some seriously astounding information. And honestly, there's probably not a person out there right now whose beak isn't wet trying to find what you did in these other podcasts to get the whole doggone thing tore up. If I remember right, Tony had to, from the confessionals, he had to use some sort of backup thing to even record the audio. So
he ripped the audio from the 4K cameras because we were recording the cameras just to have the visual that he could have to use if he needed to. And he had to rip the audio from it. And he didn't even have mics set up on it either because it wasn't set. He wasn't trying to pull the audio from it. So he actually during the podcast, it's called Rise of the Nephilim. That's the name of it. So if you're looking for it on the confessionals, Rise of the Nephilim. halfway through, he and I break away and have a conversation about what's about to happen and why the audio is going to change now. After we talked about a lot of stuff with the regular quality with the Shure mic. So you'll see a change. He's such a good engineer, though, that even though it wasn't great quality when you ripped it off, he ended up making it pretty well. It's very understandable. So it's not awful. It's just not, the quality that he likes to present when he does his podcast. I told him, though, it just gives validity to what we're doing. I was like, he said the same thing. He's like, I'm putting it out there because, I want people to hear this. And I feel like there's more to be told with this story, and we're going to keep digging. And if we're pissing off entities or whatever else, I'm okay with that. I think that God knows that certain people can handle this stuff, or warriors. I call them warriors. There's people that are built to be warriors. Not everybody's a warrior. Not everybody's supposed to be, for that matter. I do feel like I'm one of those people. My dad was one of those people. And I feel like that I know with God that I'll have the strength when I need it to combat whatever is in front of me. You're not saying it's going to be easy, and I'm not tooting my own horn and acting like I'm something special. I'm not. But I do feel like that there are people that are built for this. I think Tony's one of them. I think people are just, naturally inclined to go this direction, and God gave them that inclination for a reason.
Do you feel like you're, man, I better save this for another time, because this is going to be, we're going to put this on the Permaculture Pimpcast for anybody else who wants to see it. We'll engineer this thing. And then, I want to thank Joel basically for not knocking this brand new computer. I thought this was the old one, dude, but we just got this one. But yeah, I'm glad you didn't go into the full extent of what you talked about before. But there are people I would love to put you in the room with, and people I'd love for you to compare notes with. Some of them also coming from that entertainment background. And the thing that's jaw-dropping to me is you are confirming a lot of what I heard them say. And you haven't even met these people. And some of them, it's just, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. And I think a lot of people forget that. And they often wonder, and I think you did a really good job in that podcast of explaining. I've often wondered, how are they such psychopaths to knowingly do what they're doing right now? And I think you do a really good job of explaining that they don't even consider themselves human.
We're cattle. We're just, that's what we are. We're not worthy really to be in their presence, but they need us because there's more of us and less of them, and they're not willing to do the work. So they need us to do the work. They need us to keep these ecosystems running for them.
Well, for now, yeah. Well, hey, y'all, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, man. This has been a joy. Folks, if you're getting in here late, you want to go back to the beginning. We went 180 degrees of where we started, and where we started was we got some new music that we're going to be playing in the videos. And Joel, basically, along with his partner, Quan Duke, they basically came up with a pretty awesome little song that we can put into some of our videos, because it's talking about growth. And it's talking about, it's called Photosynthesis is the name of the song. And like I said, we'll, in our videos and in our podcast, you're going to see that more and more, how we're going to use it there. And I can't thank him enough for doing that. I kind of planted the seed and wanted to see what he came up with. And unfortunately, I lack the technical prowess to be able to pull it up right now and play it. So you can either tell everybody how they find you, Joel.
Sure.
Because I'm sure they're after hearing that, if they just tuned in late, everybody's going to want to find you.
Sure. So the easiest way to find me, you go to Linktree / VanTesla Music. That'll really get you everywhere. Now, if you're looking for us on Instagram, which we do the most work, and we got a lot of fun stuff on Instagram. We do a lot of really cool conspiracy reels. I do some really fun stuff about Elohim and Nephilim. I do talk about a lot of stuff there too, which is really cool. But I do it in very fun, entertaining ways, just to kind of crack people's interest in stuff. You can find me at VanTesla Music on Instagram, or you can find me at Operation Kill the Mockingbirds, which is my podcast with Sean Chris. That's the big page, but everything's connected to it. Music-wise, just type in Joel Thomas, Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, whatever. Photosynthesis is out there. So you could even type in Photosynthesis Joel Thomas here on YouTube and find it. So you can find the song that I did for you guys. It's there. So it's a great song. It's going to be in our new VanTesla 2 album, which we were working so hard on. I was just in the studio all day today working on a new track with myself and Quan. So, we're working, really hard to put out some great music. But, Sean and I are every week working on the podcast, got guests on. We're going to have you on here soon. We get you booked in, you and your son, which is going to be great because we're going to talk about permaculture. And, we want to also give people solutions. It's not just about raving against, the man or society or whatever these elites are. It's about giving also solutions. And like the song Photosynthesis talks about growth, we're going to teach each other how to grow together, because what we can do is build a community that we don't need these elites. We don't need them for anything. And I damn sure don't need any of them now. So there's that.
That's right. That's right. That's why your music resonates so much with me, folks. You want to check it out. I'm a tough sell when it comes to music. I really am, because if it's just some stupid hip hop garbage, or if it's some, like you're in Tractor Supply and they play that stuff that ain't even country music anymore. If it's any of this bargain basement crap, in fact, if you're playing it on the radio, it's worth exactly what you didn't pay for it. So the best music out there, the best entertainment out there, the best of everything is you're going to have to put in some work to get it. And you should check out the Kill the Mockingbirds podcast. Brah! It's actually fun. It's you'll check it out and you'll see what I'm talking about. But and also check out the confessionals. You want to be on there when Joel's on there. He's been on there a few times, as I understand it. William has even been on there. So it's been a real joy, bro, to hang out with you and talk and do something really on this channel that really has never been done before. But hopefully people are going to not necessarily rely on somebody because they're standing up in front of a pulpit, but maybe go and examine these things that you spoke about tonight for yourself. They may not agree with you. They may not agree with me. We may not agree with each other, but go out there and examine it for yourself and see how it's going. But folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I can't thank you enough. Joel, thank you so much for spending time here tonight. I know you got a lot of things you can do. Look forward to hanging out with you again, my man. And maybe we'll get you down there at that Self-Reliance Festival.
We'll talk.